everybody. Welcome to Dine plus Design here at the Dallas Market Center. I am Michael Bauer. I'm Vice President of Design for the Market Center. And I have with me today, this is such a great time for the Market Center and for Dine plus Design, with everybody getting back in and getting back together. And for us to have Benjamin Moore, Allison Berry could not have done any of this without Allison Berry and Benjamin Moore. Also, we want to thank Paulette Pearson and Luxe Interiors and Design Magazine. What a great way to kick off a sponsorship for this Dine plus Design for the spring. Allison, I'm thrilled.
So excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to do a little bit. I'm going to have to get my paper out because we have so many incredible sponsors this year. I don't want to forget anybody. And before I forget, if you have not put your card in the giveaway box, there is one here at the registration desk. Make sure that you do that before the end of the presentation. I don't want you to miss what's going to happen here, but I certainly don't want you to be without getting your card in for the giveaways, because we've got some great giveaways. I want to thank again Benjamin Moore and Luxe Interiors and Design, Ashore, Curry & Company, Dine Designs, Designer's Patio, Fazy Rugs, Gabby Home, Game Room by Design, Hubbard & Forge, Hudson Valley, Callaloo, Market Hill on 6, Park Hill, Rose Casual, Shima Shanti, Tailors by Jane, Unique Loom, Charles Ray, Classic Home, Cyan Design, Dallas Rugs, Daniel Design Studio, Danny's Fine Porcelain, Design Directions, Global Views, Expressive Homes by Henna, and let me take that back, Global Views Studio A Home, and I know that's how that goes because they're such a great sponsor. Uma Home Decor, Uttermost, and last but not least, for sure, is Veriluz Lighting. We have some great lighting manufacturers that are starting with the design community. We are thrilled to have that happen. And now, without further ado, I want to introduce Allison Berry with Benjamin Moore.
Thank you, Michael. Benjamin Moore is so happy to be here, and we love our relationship with Dallas Market Center and with Michael Bauer. So first of all, thank you for having us host today. A few quick thank yous too. This kind of event doesn't just happen. There's a lot of people that worked really, really hard to make this happen. Allie and Rachel with DMC, and also Lauren Corbin with Benjamin Moore. Thank you. Y'all are rock stars. You have been my knight in shining armor. But most importantly, thank you guys for being here. I mean, this amount of people, it feels good. Like, you can feel the energy in the room, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be up here today, even though it's kind of terrifying. There's 500 of you here. That's insane. And of course, we couldn't make it a Benjamin Moore event without theming it ourselves. So you'll see around you 4 different colors that we put together to make our own powerful palette. We have black raspberry, Indiegogo, pink damask, and bow green, all painted in our beautiful Aura product. But luckily, you're not here to listen to me talk about paint for an hour, and I am really obsessed with this panel. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our moderator for today, Paulette Pearson, the Texas home editor for Luxe Interiors and Design.
Hello. Hi. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. I'm so excited and honored to be sharing this stage with 3 of the most talented designers. And thank you for that introduction. My name is Paulette Pearson, and I'm the Texas Homes Editor with Luxe Interiors and Design. Really, really thrilled to be here with just 3 incredible women, 3 very talented designers. I'm sure you all are very familiar with their work. It's truly my honor. So thank you, Benjamin Moore, for asking me to moderate this panel. And as someone who is truly loyal to Benjamin Moore White Dove, which I think is absolutely the most perfect shade of white, I'm excited to get their expert take on the transformative power of color, which is going to be sort of driving our discussion today. And I'm hoping we can also glean a few tips along the way as well from them about color, and hopefully you all will leave feeling inspired. So I would like you all to kind of give a warm welcome to our 3 panelists, and thank you so much for being here, guys. All right, so I guess we can kind of dive right in, if you don't mind. I'm going to start the panel off with sort of a high-level question, which also feels a little philosophical in a way. Some of my questions do today, but I wanted to sort of get y'all's take, and we can start with Monica. I'll point this over to you, but in what ways do you feel color has transformative power? So it's very high level, but when you think about the transformative power of color, how do you feel color can be transformative in your projects or in our homes?
Well, I definitely feel like color definitely emits emotions. It makes you feel a certain way when you see certain colors. It can have effects on your mood, your emotional stability. If you're happy, if you're sad, colors have a lot to do with just whether feeling like you have the energy in that space. So I feel like color is definitely transformative in that way. And then just, I don't know if you guys ever paid attention, but when you're looking at fast food restaurants and you see the colors that are orange and red, those colors make you hungry, right? So that's why they use those colors, because they know the power of what it does to your brain and it makes you think of food. So don't paint your dining room orange or red, or your bedroom orange or red, or you'll be hungry all the time. So yeah, it definitely has a transformative power for sure.
What about you guys? When you think about transformative color, what comes to mind for you guys? Or you ladies?
Well, I feel like I very often use softer blues in bedrooms. I feel like I always gravitate towards that. And a lot of the clients tend to want that for the soothing quality. So in that way, it's transformative. I also feel like after COVID, I'm seeing a lot of clients that are asking for pinks and like greens and earthy tones. And I feel like I'm using more of that.
So in our work, we view paint as foundational. So everything builds on what the color really is. So if you want your bedroom to be dark, moody, cozy, we tend to go for a darker tone. And then again, we also lean towards neutrals and really just try to create a calming, zen-like environment if that's what the design brief is for that client. So.
Do each of you, can you guys hear me? Do each of you have a color strategy or philosophy? So I don't know if you adhere to any rules when selecting color, but if you do, what is your philosophy or strategy when you are presented with a project and you're trying to achieve a certain feel or look? What is your strategy? What are the steps that you take? And I'll let, let's bring this back over to Susan.
Well, I tend to keep things fairly neutral, and I tend to add a pop of color somewhere, whether it's on changing the door colors to maybe a blue if I do white walls, or I'll add a watermark detail around a room. I tend to go with brighter colors in those focused areas. I also gravitate towards Benjamin Moore's historical colors. I find they're very, very grounded, and they're not so pure color, and that tends to work well with my work. I think my East Coast background and kind of the historical colors of Nantucket and Williamsburg and those kind of those colors have always been part of the way I grew up and what I'm used to. So that tends to be a through line in my work.
How about you, Jean?
I think, there's the wonderful thing about interior design is that whether you want to call it strategy, most everything is subjective. The only thing that I really feel strongly about in choosing paint colors is to try multiple samples, even if they're a different shade of beige or white. And we always insist on coming back at different times of the day to look at what the light is doing to that paint color, because too often it looks great in the morning, by afternoon it feels green, and that's not necessarily what we want, nor does the client. So I think if there is a strategy, it really is about looking at that paint throughout the day and seeing what it does or doesn't do.
Monica, is it similar for you?
I think mine's probably a little more personal, to where my strategy is really to get to know the client and find out more about what makes them comfortable and what they're wanting their space to feel like when they're in it. I feel like colors just put people in different modes and different moods and different vibes. And so my strategy is to learn more about how they want to feel in that space. And once I find that out, then depending on if they want to feel relaxed or soothed, I'll then pick neutral tones for them. If they want to feel happy and, you know, like a sense of escapism, maybe I'll use some beautiful tropical blues or some Caribbean teals. So it really just depends on how the client wants to feel. That's my strategy on how I start with choosing colors from the beginning.
Does that change from space to space? So thinking about how you want your clients to feel, does obviously the space and the size of the space and the purpose of the space, how does that play into your overall plan as well?
Well, I just want to definitely make sure it flows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the transitions from
Yeah.
paint from room to room really matter. So we look for smooth transitions.
Okay.
And I have to say, I tend to use, if I am going to use brighter colors, I tend to do that in fun kids' rooms, you know, in one shape or one way or the other.
And I guess that's a great segue into my next question, which is, are there any tricks to building out a balanced color scheme throughout a house? Jean, you mentioned transitions. I mean, is there anything else that you keep in mind when you're selecting colors from space to space?
I think the furniture has a lot to do with it. So if you're going to have a pretty neutral color palette, I would hope that we would try to have furniture that feels like it's got a pop of color or enough contrast against whatever the paint color is on the walls.
The other thing is artwork if a client has a specific art collection, obviously we want to make sure that we're not necessarily matching, but complementing the art collection.
Anything else?
I feel the same way.
So one of the things I'm always curious about, and this probably depends on the designer, but at what point during the process do you select your colors? You mentioned furniture. Is the furniture already selected? When do you begin to think about paint and color in your work? Is it, obviously it's very, very early on, but how do those other elements, the furniture, the art, how does all of that play into it? Because at the end of the day, it has to feel cohesive. So it may be a chicken or the egg question, but what comes first? At what point in the process do you begin to think about paint and make those selections?
For me, I think it starts right from the very beginning, because when I walk into a new client's home, what colors do they already have in their home? Like, what am I working with from the beginning? Are we changing everything completely? Are we just upgrading a room or two? So it has a lot to do from the beginning of what I'm going to do to the space. So when I first go in, I just kind of do an overall view of what I have to work with. And I think about colors. I just don't narrow down exactly what colors that I want to use. I just kind of have an overall sense of if I'm going on the cool side of the color wheel or the warm side of the color wheel. And then I actually start choosing the furnishings and the accessories. I actually choose those things first, knowing if I'm going to go on the warm side or on the cool side of the wheel. And then I choose colors actually last, the exact colors that I want to do.
That's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
Same.
I would say that, you know, for us, the paint's always in the back of our mind, and especially in new construction, again, we get the opportunity to really walk the site, look at the light conditions, the direction of the rooms. So I think that conversation is always happening somewhere back here, but then we get to also know the client, talk about what their color preferences are, but similarly to these two ladies, I don't think that the actual shade is finalized until the very end, because to be honest, we can do so many things with paint, and there are so many options that we would prefer to nail down all the upholstery and all the furnishings and then come back and make sure that the paint works with all these other variables we have now defined.
Well, thank you. What do you do when you have a client who maybe, I'm sure you have clients who know exactly what they want in terms of color, and that's a challenge in and of itself. But what do you do when the client doesn't necessarily give you so much of a directive? So when you kind of have to pull it out of the air, is it more about that feeling and the feel of the space? What drives it when really it's sort of a blank canvas and you don't really have much to work off of in terms of color and mood and palette?
I think we try to derive as much as we can from a client, whether it's the car they drive, the outfits that they wear when we meet them, and even if they don't give us anything to go by when it comes to their home, we start creating a story, a narrative, and I have literally sat down with them and said, this is how I envision your life in this house, and then we start putting story and mood boards together, and it may not be anything that they end up going with, but it becomes a jumping off point for a conversation. And often I find they do have opinions about color and what they want their home to look like. They may not have the vocabulary or the language to talk about it until we put something a little bit more concrete in front of them.
To add to that, which I agree with, I have a exercise that I make my clients go through. It's a free-form exercise. If it's a husband and wife, they do it separately. And they may not know why they like a room, but they'll tag something like, I don't like that room, or I like that room, it reminds me of my grandmother's house, or this feels fresh, like a vacation. And all those things I pulled together, and we developed the rooms and the color based on that exercise.
And I personally like to look in people's closets.
Same.
Yeah. Number one, I want to see how messy they are. No. Or if they have a better closet than me. So I like to look in people's closets because what people wear usually is what they feel comfortable with. And so, like for me, I like wearing a lot of neutral tones, a lot of neutral colors. And so my house reflects the way that I like to dress. And I think that's probably true for most clients. But I will ask them, I will have a conversation with them. I'll say, I notice your clothes are pretty neutral. Are you open to colors? And if you are open, what colors are you open to? And I just try to get the conversation about color going. But the majority of the time, most people are fairly close and feel comfortable with what they're comfortable putting on their own bodies.
And the only fun thing I'll add to this is I once worked with a client who literally, we built her house off of tear sheets, and the tear sheets were full of no's, things she didn't like. So basically, by the time we reduced all of the things out of her no tear sheets, that's how we built all the rooms.
That was going to be my next comment. I can't tell you how many designers I've come across who start with the no's to get to the yes at the end of the day, so it's kind of backing into it, I guess, which is a good trick. I guess we can glean anything from that. So where do you guys go for inspiration? When you're thinking about palettes, a lot of people love to look at books or magazines or travel. Where do you guys go for your own inspiration so that you can kind of, bring your own inspired ideas to these projects? Are there is that something you still seek, or let us know where you go?
I get all my inspiration from Lux magazine, like everything, everything that I do is from Lux magazine. They're my favorite. I'll be sending over those images later for that editorial. So I would definitely say that. I mean, we get color from everywhere. Obviously, fashion is a big influence on my designs, and I love watching the runway shows in Paris, and I love fashion. I love Balmain. I love Gucci and Louis, and I love fashion. I love Dior. So I'm into those. I kind of follow the what's going on in fashion as far as what color trends are going to be prominent that year. I also follow the color trends from what the big paint companies put out, like Benjamin Moore. So that's definitely where I find like my color palettes. And then there's always those go-tos where every year, everybody likes blue, just different shades of blue, whether it's cobalt blue or navy blue or powder blue. Blue seems to be a consistent palette in interior design. I don't think you can go wrong with it. A lot of people feel comfortable with that tone. I think inspiration for color comes from everywhere.
We definitely watch fashion shows and see what's trending from these particular creators. I also think that the world of art continues to be important in our lives. What's being exhibited, whether it's at the Met or down at the Nasher. Bertoya was recently here, so that was wonderful to see. And I think that in the age of COVID, even as we emerge, unfortunately or unfortunately, we watched a lot of TV. So the movie set of Dune somehow has lodged in my mind. That color palette is extremely appealing to me. For some of you who might find this a little disturbing, I found the set of Squid Games to be really graphic. And so that has also been something that's been on repeat in my mind. So I think we don't underestimate the power of movies or TV series.
So I tend to go back to travel photographs that I've taken, a lot of in Europe and things like that. I'm actually just went through a bunch of pictures for a new project. I also love English interiors. I think that they're really bold with color, and I feel like sometimes I have to push myself. I still love the muted tones, but they use it in a very specific way, which I really like. To your point about shows, I'm obsessed by Bridgerton. Everything in that show I love. I think season 2 is even better than season 1 and I think they've punched the color in season 2, and I love watching that. So I find I'm taking screenshots of the TV all the time for that show.
I think that that's so interesting, and especially, Jean, what you mentioned about the pandemic. And one of the things I always question in terms of color is just how what's happening in the world changes the way that we look at color and changes maybe what clients are kind of seeking in their homes. So my next question has a little bit to do with that, and that is, have you found that what clients are wanting in terms of how they want their spaces to feel, what colors they wanted to be surrounded with, has that changed at all in the past couple of years, or is it too soon to kind of, to kind of see those changes? But is that something that you guys have encountered at all in any way in your work? A big change in what people are wanting?
I think that for our studio, clients are still coming to us for the same actual colors. I think we're just taking a dustier tone to some of these colors that we've always been working with, a softer palette. I think the idea is to make it much more cozy than before, and I do see this trend, not paint-wise, but the willingness to spend a lot more money on someone's furnishings than ever before.
I definitely believe that people are caring more about what their homes look like, and maybe people that were not even interested in interior design, now it's all of a sudden important because other people are looking, and so I definitely feel like that is definitely something that's important to them now.
I think people have always come to me for blues, and I feel like that's consistent. I feel like a lot of people want blue in their home. I'm also seeing a lot of greens and earth tones, as I mentioned before, and pink. And maybe that's a Dallas thing. I don't know. Being from the East Coast, I think that there's more color in general. People are more open for color in Dallas, maybe more so than they are on the East Coast, and maybe that's just what I'm noticing from the location.
With all this being said, do you have any go-to colors or schemes or combination? And in particular, do you have any go-to colors from Benjamin Moore? Mine is white dove, in case anyone's curious. But do you have any go-to colors, just sort of the ones that you can always rely on, always turn to in case you kind of hit a wall and don't know what to choose? So what are those combinations for you, and what are those specific colors from Benjamin Moore that you love?
For me, definitely Hail Navy is a good one. Revere Gray is a go-to. I love just their classic black. For me, my color palette that I tend to go to where I just can never go wrong is obviously black, white, and gold. It's one of my favorite combinations. The color black has come back with a huge vengeance, and people are obsessed with using it again. For a while, it was completely taken out of design, and everything was, they didn't want any piece of black furniture in their home, and now it's come back. And so that's my go-to color palette, and then I can always pop that with blues or emerald greens or a beautiful eggplant color. But a lot of the Benjamin Moore neutrals are great. The classic gray is great. And I love Van Heusen blue. That's a beautiful color, so yeah.
I wouldn't say that I have any specific Benjamin Moore go-to colors, because again, I come back to, we really spend a lot of time looking at every room from every angle at every different time of day. I will say that as a group of colors, though, we have found a lot of use out of the historical collection that Benjamin Moore offers. I was telling Lauren at dinner last night, not just with historical collection, but I don't really know what Benjamin Moore does to its paint. I told Lauren, I think they sprinkle fairy dust in there, because when we decide to go with Benjamin Moore, we can generally get it right in the first 2 tries, which, if time is money, that is hugely beneficial. And then the only thing I would say is the way that Benjamin Moore plays out in our life. There's a picture on this that is of a restaurant we recently completed, and the mural has that's a Benjamin Moore based mural. All those colors are out of those color palettes except for one. So I think that speaks quite a volume in terms of the range that Benjamin Moore offers.
I have a number of neutral colors that I go back to all the time. Simply white is a big one for walls, and I find that I often mix it with gray mist, and for the trim is a little gray and a little darker. I also love Revere pewter. I've used it on trim, I've used it on walls, I've used it on the exterior of my own house, on the trim, love it. So that's one that I enjoy. And then also Kendall charcoal is another one that's a dark, which I often like to paint millwork, accent millwork and Kendall charcoal. And all those look great if you add blues like Van Dusen blue I love. Just did some doors in that, contrast doors on a project.
What about finishes? I mean, that's such an important part of how a color appears on a wall and the kind of mood you want to create. I know, Jean, we all had dinner last night, and you mentioned your study at home and the high gloss finish, and I think you painted it black. Yeah. Tell us, when do you choose to, what motivates you to kind of go really glossy in a space, and what is sort of your finish strategy when you're working on these projects, from trim to walls to ceilings, and then those special spaces that get the high gloss treatment?
The space that Paulette is talking about is actually my library at home, and I told this funny story about how we decided to lacquer or high gloss this library in anticipation of our home being the flower show here in Dallas for the Marian Scruggs, and we unfortunately ran into bad weather, and high gloss paint or lacquer takes a long time to dry, and so we'd been at this for 2+ weeks and the paint still wasn't dry, and we had 400 women coming over to the house 2 hours prior to this, and I said, we can't wait any longer. So I had all hands on deck putting all the books back in the bookshelves, and the paint was still sticky, and if you pull the books out of the shelves today, you'll see the lines from the shelves and on the bottom of the books. So that was sort of my lesson learned the hard way. But in terms of what finish to use, I do really encourage families or clients to think about how they're going to use the room. So if you have a young family and their children running down the hallways, matte, even though it's beautiful, or flat, may not be the best option because handprints, food stains, they're hard to get off the walls. Gloss would be a wonderful finish for moody, jewel box type of spaces that you may be able to close the door and not have it be everywhere in your home.
I'm a high gloss type of gal. I like shiny things, so gloss is always a winner for me. However, I learned a valuable lesson the last time I used gloss. You have to make sure that the wood species that you're using the gloss on is milled very well, is done very well, because high gloss does show a lot of imperfections. And so you have to be careful when you're using it. But I've used it in ceilings, which looks stunning. Obviously on built-ins, it looks great. And you can also just paint a piece of vintage furniture with high gloss. So I always encourage people to do that. They always give me a strange look when I say that. They get a little scared. And then when I show them photos of what it looks like, they are very excited to do it. So, and then matte, of course, is my go-to for my own home, just because I like the clean, smooth, flawless finish of matte. But of course, I have to have a paintbrush with me like every other day.
I agree with both of you guys. Matte is my go-to for walls for most projects and even for my own home. I have done, I think one of the shots that's coming up is a high gloss dining room I did. We were looking to make the house a little bit more, just a little elevated, a little slicker, and I think that rather than just painting the walls gray, the gloss ends up adding such a really pretty tone and feeling, especially when it's candlelit at night in the dining room. I also have a old 1921 house, and the ceilings aren't super tall, so I painted my living room. I did wallpaper on the walls, silk wallpaper, and I painted the ceiling a cream tone that's high gloss. People walk in at night and they just go, and they stare because it reflects everything in the room at night, and it looks beautiful, actually. So that was a great way of actually making the ceiling seem higher, and it worked in my home.
I have so many more questions. I wish we had all day. I think we're down to about maybe 5 minutes, so we'll continue for as long as we can. But I'm curious too how texture and pattern can kind of play into the mix. So when obviously there's always room for wallpaper. When do you kind of choose to mix? What is your strategy there, I guess, when it comes to, selecting colors and then choosing those special walls that deserve a little bit more treatment or more texture and more pattern?
I think a lot of it depends on the client. If it's a more traditional client, the layering of texture on the walls with maybe a tone of millwork that's like complements it, that adds a nice element. Or if there's to highlight something and make it more graphic, something on the ceiling is always fun. I think it depends very much on the client.
We love the opportunity to incorporate a wall covering. Some clients are a little frightened of doing that because they think of wallpaper as immediately something that's a commitment. It's got a pattern. It's got something that just makes you want to stare at it. But that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes a wall covering can be a very subtle one, whether it's a grass cloth or just something to give the walls a little bit more texture. And then we work side by side with the paper to find the color paint-wise. And we also like to use wall coverings in areas that have an easier way to have a starting and a stopping point, because too often we prefer not to just leave it jagged edge, unfinished.
I agree. And with wallpaper, I feel like it's really fun and it's a challenge to pick out the colors that you can see in the wallpaper and paint accent walls around them. And it's a great way to also get that really expensive wallpaper that you just love, do that wallpaper on the accent wall, and then paint a color out of the wallpaper around the other walls. So that's a great way to give you that look that you want and save you some money also.
To add to that point, I've often done wallpaper on the back of bookshelves, which I think for someone who's maybe a little timid about pattern, or you want to use something that's amazing, it looks great on the back of bookshelves, or in a small powder room. Really doing something that's vibrant and a surprise in wallpaper is great in a powder room.
I was going to say, usually, or not usually, but oftentimes one of my favorite spaces in a lot of the projects we feature are the powder baths, because it seems like the homeowner and the designer were a little bit more willing to be adventurous in there. So that sort of is a great lead into my next question, which is, in what spaces, so do you have tips for selecting color in small spaces versus large spaces? Are there rules? What do you think about when you're thinking about a really small space, and what colors might need to come into play versus very large, maybe area or spaces with more light? Are there any rules or kind of tenets that you kind of follow or stick to, or maybe not? I don't know.
I definitely think there are rules that we've all heard of as designers, which is, don't put dark colors into small spaces because it's going to make it feel smaller. I don't know if that rule is true anymore. I feel like,
I don't think so.
I want to throw that rule out. So I actually do the opposite. I like putting dark colors into small spaces and light colors into large spaces. But I think a lot of it just has to do with where you want to use the colors, where it's appropriate. I definitely believe in powder rooms that pop, that look amazing. And that's the one room where I feel like people can just do something crazy, do something daring in a powder room space. So yeah, I don't believe in that rule anymore. I think it's just wherever it fits, wherever it's appropriate. And if it's good design, it's gonna look good whether it's a small room or a large room.
I think ceiling heights also come into play in terms of how we end up choosing colors or how dark we go. I totally agree with Monica. We really love to paint small spaces dark. I think it gives you the exact opposite effect of making a room feel even smaller. But if you are worried about a low ceiling height, we probably would cut the paint color on the wall either by half or a fourth and just kind of give you a little bit more breathing room as you draw your eye up to the space.
I also think in terms of guest rooms are another place I like to have more fun. Kids' rooms for sure, but guest rooms because, it's just, you're not in there every day, and so you're more likely to do something adventurous.
And here's another one of my philosophical questions, which might be one of our last ones. Yeah. So do you feel that that color is more of an art or a science or both? And I guess I'm kind of getting the sense from you all that it's less of a science. There's never an answer. It really depends a lot on the feel of the space and the client, and but tell me a little bit more about that. I'm curious what your responses would be when asked, is color more of an art or a science or both?
I think color is definitely an art. I think we'd be out of business if it were science.
Yeah, good answer.
Agreed. I agree.
Okay. Well, thank you so much to Monica Wilcox, Jean Liu, and Susan Bednar-Long. You guys are just the best, and thank you for all that you do for the design community and for sharing your beautiful talents with us in the world. So thank you so much. I think we have some time for a few questions. If anybody feels inspired or brave enough to stand up and ask a question while you have these ladies at your disposal. So just raise your hand, and I think that someone will come by with a microphone. I keep laughing that I didn't wear my glasses today, so all of you are just like a blur. So if you have a question, just maybe yell out. But I think we have a question over here to our left.
Hi, yes, my name is Veronica. I was wondering, have you ever made a mistake with color? And if you have, how have you rectified that, especially, in the middle of a project?
That's a good question. I feel like I've definitely made mistakes with color. And a lot of it had to do with light, like the way the sun shined on it later. Like I picked it at a certain time of the day, and then I went back, and a color that I thought was gray actually had pink in it. And the client spotted it, and I thought, oh, yeah, it does look a little pink. So, we have to correct it and paint it a different color. But I think that's, it's trial and error with color. You're going to make mistakes. We've all dyed our hair a certain color and thought, no, that didn't work for me. So definitely made mistakes.
I think that's the beauty of paint also, is if you did make a mistake, you can paint over it.
I'd made a mistake we were trying to paint a wall and a ceiling the same color, and we looked at a certain time of day, and we knew we had to cut the ceiling color to go lighter because of the way it was going to combine, but we didn't cut it enough, and it looked darker, so we had to repaint the ceiling. So.
And I also think that's why paint is an art, or color is an art and not a science.
Any more questions?
Hello, mic check, 1 2 1 2. I was at KBIS recently, and there was a panel conversation about #NoWhiteKitchens. I'm very curious if you are seeing color back in the kitchens, especially on the cabinets.
Yes, lots of colored cabinets now.
I just painted a kitchen Narragansett green, the cabinets, and it looks amazing with really crisp white walls. So, yeah.
I think we have a couple questions over here in the center.
Hello, thank y'all for such great information. I have a quick question. So I'm dealing with a client, they are in their mid-70s. What colors or sheens would you say I need to sort of kind of help them with? They don't have glaucoma or any of those issues, but with them being an elderly couple, how do you, or if you've had clients that's of that age range, how do you go about with helping them with colors and finishes?
You said they have glaucoma?
No, they don't.
Oh, okay.
No.
Because I was going to go, if they don't see it, just do what your heart wants. Tell them it's fabulous. I feel like you probably just need to ask more questions to them and see what do they have that you're working with. I think it doesn't really matter the age. They should just be, talked to and treated just like any other client would. And if they trust you enough to do it, do what you feel is the best thing to do. picking colors is an art, but it's also a creative thing for the designer to do, because clients don't necessarily know all the colors that are available, that are out there, all the different mixes and all the different formulas that you can put together. So I think a lot of it has to do with your expertise and the things that you can bring together and how you put colors together. And I've seen some things that I would never think about putting together that absolutely look stunning. So I think just having a conversation with them would probably be the best.
It's funny that you mention that because I have a client now who's colorblind. And so what we're finding is navies and blues he can see and he's attracted to. So we're mixing and contrasting whites and navies a lot. And I actually have another client who's actually going blind. So which creates another whole, I don't even know what's gonna happen by the end of the job. He may not be able to see any color anyway. And then it's not gonna be about color, it's gonna be about texture and mood of the room and feel. So that's been challenging for me.
I don't have any comment. I think that the color doesn't have anything to do with the age unless they have specific health issues that need to be addressed, and that's where we can get more information on advising a client in their 70s.
Anybody else? Same table, the troublemakers.
Yeah. So I know you experience a lot. What room are you going to be really creative in? And I think you already mentioned the powder room is kind of an area where they're more creative. So outside of that, what would be another room that you would suggest being creative with color or print?
Kids' rooms. We seem to get a lot of creative license in a kids' room, and powder rooms for sure. I will tell you this funny anecdote. We just onboarded a new client. They moved from out of town, and the husband and the wife remind me a lot of people I went to college with. They have a lot of fun. They've already come to me and decided that in this massive renovation, they're going to give me the downstairs powder room, and they're going to ask me, our studio, to completely do it in whatever way we choose and just have it be a surprise. They don't want to know anything about it. They don't want to be consulted on it, but the pressure is on to make it memorable.
I would also say guest rooms are fun, and also kids' playrooms. Those are all great places to do something unusual.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Anybody else want to be brave enough to stand up?
Actually, I will.
Okay, oh, of course you will.
You can hear me without this microphone, but at the same time, do you battle with a customer about what color? Does you go into a client's home, they have a color they have in mind, and you know for sure that's not going to do well in their home? Is that something that you see or you come up with all the time, or no?
I personally don't have that happen a lot. I usually win with what I want.
Yes, you do.
No, we do have clients that pick crazy colors to put together. I don't know if a color by itself, but to put together. And, I just kind of give them a look and hope that they get it, Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
I recently actually battled over a blue. We wanted to paint an island in a kitchen blue. And of course, I came with my historical colors, and the client wanted something brighter. So I think we ended up with polo blue, which was a nice balance, but we went through probably 15 paint boards before we came up with that. And it was a lot for me to get her to convince her to do this color.
Yeah. We luckily don't have battle type situations very often, but I once heard a designer on a podcast say this, and I have actually repeated this to my clients. Ultimately, the home is yours, but you pay us for our first opinion, not our third opinion.
I think that's probably a great place to end. So thank you again, Monica Wilcox, Jean Liu, and Susan Bednar-Long. This has been so fascinating. And thank you, Benjamin Moore, for putting this on. And please stay seated because I hear there's going to be a very exciting giveaway. So thank you again for being here, and I hope you found this inspirational and helpful. Thank you so much.
I can't thank all of you enough. It's been such an honor to have you here and on this stage here at the Dallas Market Center. It's taken a while to get this to happen, and I'm really, really thrilled to do it. Paulette, thank you. What a great job. And we are honored to have us, also Lux Magazine, to do this as well. Okay, you guys, here we go. Before I get started with the giveaways, and I'm going to bring, I was going to bring the box up. Before we get started to do that, I wanted to say this about the team that did this setup and that took care of all of this. Allie and Rachel of the Dallas Market Center marketing team have done an amazing job. They picked the visual. They worked with Carl Marshall on the visual. It is something that I'm very close to my heart, this event is, and they actually killed it on this one. So thank you very, very much, you guys. You did an amazing, amazing job. Okay, here we go. We're going to slide this over, and we'll start with, now all of these giveaways have been given by our sponsors, which we could not do this without. Again, thank you, Benjamin Moore. Thank you, Lux Interiors and Design, and thank you, Dallas Market Center. Dallas Market Center's participation and hosting this is a huge, huge deal. It's a big deal for me, and I know that it is good for the design community and to have a panel of designers. And look around. If you just look around at the people that are in this room, this is the Dallas design community, and we are, bar none, the best in the country. Anyway, so let's go with first giveaway is from Unique Loom. Unique Loom is in the Interior Home and Design Center on the first floor, right next door to the gallery at the interior. They are giving away an area rug, a collection, a 9x12 Finsbury rug. Retail value is $500. And the first winner is, now I can just do this and I'm not going to look, Becky Pipka. Becky, are you here? Raise your hand. What you do, whenever your name is called, if you'll come up and you'll get this card, this is what you take to the showroom. You will pick your items up from the showroom itself. That gets you in there to see what great product that they have. Next, we have from Uttermost, gift certificate, Uttermost Revelation. They are sponsors and have been sponsors from the very beginning. We thank you to them. They are giving away a $500 value, and it is a gift, and it is the gift certificate, I suppose, is what it is. Yeah, $500 gift certificate to Uttermost. So that's huge. And the winner of that is Herman Guerra. Herman, are you here? Herman, congratulations. That'll be great. Uttermost will be happy to have you in their showroom. Next, we have from Gabby Home. Gabby on the first floor of the World Trade Center. And they are giving away 2 down pillows. Retail value, $513. And if you have not seen their collections, it's really cool collections of pillows. And we are going to give that to Joella Phillip from Numilux. Joella, you can come pick up your gift. Next, we have from Curry & Company, again, in the Interior Home and Design Center on the first floor. They are giving away a mermaid glass table stool, retail value $610. I've seen it. It's really, really pretty. And that is going to go to Dawn Patterson. Dawn. Next, we have from Game Rooms by Design. If you don't know Game Rooms by Design, Lisa owns that. She's an amazing, Lisa sitting right here. Thank you, Lisa. It is on the 5th floor on the atrium. She has amazing high-end game room things, tables and chairs and stools and bars and everything you can think of. $500 wholesale gift certificate. It's $1,000 retail value on this one. Thank you very much, Lisa. And that winner is Adrian Faulkner, Faulkner Design Group. Yay, Adrian. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa, for that. We now have from the Trade Mart, this is Vera Lou's. If you don't know Vera Lou's Lighting, they have a vignette downstairs. One of our new sponsors, we're really happy to have them as a sponsor. The product is a pendant light, retail value $459. And that goes to Cynthia Cynthia from Faulkner Design Group. Cynthia, Faulkner is hot today. Gift certificate. And we have from Fazy Rugs. Fazy Rugs, again, on the first floor of the World Trade Center. I could talk about each one of these vendors like they're my friends because they are. I'm very honored to be able to be part of this amazing group of manufacturers. Fazy Rugs is giving away a $500 gift certificate to their showroom for anything that you pick. And that is going to go to Tracy Loving. Tracy Loving and LDI Designs. Tracy, congratulations. And then we have, last but not least, we have from Callaloo on the second floor of the World Trade Center. If you're not aware, Callaloo, they have moved into the home industry. They're doing some great upholstery products. The price points are amazing. Go and see them. They are giving away a glass and antique brass cube accent table. Retail value $699. And that is going to go to, last but not least, to Don Patterson Interiors. And this is to Salvia Anderson. Is that right? Salvia, are you here? Yay, you're here. Congratulations. Look like we had a couple of winners from the same firm. We want to thank you again. You all are amazing. Do not forget that we have other things happening. Get on our website. It gives you a link of what's going on here at Design Days. Look forward to Fall Design Week. Fall Design Week is September 12th through 15th. And we have a lot of things happening during Fall Design Week. We have West Edge Design from LA. They're coming here, called now West Edge Dallas. We have an art. I wish I could remember all the names exactly, but Design Week in the fall is going to be huge. So please watch your radars, watch the design newsletter coming in, and we thank you very much for coming today.